Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Teachers in Business. This is episode 42, and I have yet another, but honestly, not yet another, one of my very, very favorite people. So you are going to have a treat today. My friend Jen Lebo is here. She is a certified life and body image coach. She does all the things. And if you hate anything, she's going to fix that for you because she doesn't do hate. She's super interesting. 25 years in the boarding school world, teaching and coaching and running a girls' dormitory. And every time I have like a girl mom problem, the first person I call is Jen, because she's got like a whole bookshelf full of stuff that she's like, look at these books in this picture and read them in the following order. She owns a coaching business now, but she's also owned another business as a photographer, and she's just spent her whole life with women and girls and schools with the camera at home. She's got kids. She knows what y'all are up against, and she coaches women on body image. Y'all, we're in our 40s. We both are. So we know. Like after you have the kids, after you like have the job where you don't ever get to get up from your desk. I don't know anybody like that. After I like in here that it says gravity. Hi, gravity. Thanks for playing. And, this is really just like we'll talk about it, but as slowly as we all have, she has found her way to exactly where she's meant to be. So Jen Lebo, thank you for coming.
Yay. I'm so happy to be here. And I love the way you just said that. I finally found my way to where I'm supposed to be. So thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, please. This is where I'm like, hi friend, do you want to come on podcast?
Yep, I know. So fun.
So let's start where I always start, which is in teaching, because my people are the teachers. You know this. You have been on many a call with me where we like hatch some sort of crazy person plan. And I think my Facebook group was one of them.
Yes.
I think we've named your Facebook group a couple times. We named mine. Like, yes. This is all stuff we've done together. So talk to me about your definition of teacher and what it means to be a teacher in your world, because I know you are also married to a high school teacher. He's a math person and I love him, even though I don't know him.
I love this question. And I was thinking about it, and I feel like there are two answers to this question, because you've got like the traditional teacher definition, someone who has a specific container and is in a specific kind of classroom and teaches a specific subject. And usually you think about high school or college or, younger kids, but it's that profession of a teacher, like my husband, like you, and like your people, and like I used to be. And then there's the more general definition, I think, because in a way, I think we're all teaching. I saw a shirt the other day that said, like, teach everything you know. And that's, I think, what we're doing. Like, we're all teaching in different containers, and we're all being taught in different containers, right? So I'm teacher to my kids, and in some ways they're teacher to me. Same with the girls in the dorm and the work that you and I do in our businesses. So I think there's like a traditional professional definition, but then I think there's a more fluid definition. And
I like the idea in there of container, right? That no matter which definition you use, the idea of container came across, both of them. That like a teacher is someone who teaches within a container. Like there is something you have and you teach it to some specific set of people that are in this, like whenever anybody says container to me, I think plant pot, which is ridiculous.
Of course you do.
It's totally what I think of. Like I have many containers in my greenhouse. And so it's this idea of container, I think that's really interesting, right? I mean, what are your thoughts on how container bridges those two?
Well, yeah, and I think that's the idea of fluid. And I also would imagine, although I am not, I have a black thumb and kill everything I try to grow except my children. But there's this idea that containers always look so different,
Mm.
but they still hold space for something, I guess, right? So my husband is literally 100 or 200 yards away from me in his traditional classroom with rows and desks and a whiteboard teaching calculus. But I'm here on Zoom, and after our call, we'll be getting into my Facebook group to teach content through Facebook.
Mm.
And it's more fluid, but the containers are always there, even if it's my daughter and me in her bedroom, right?
Yep.
And who's teaching who in that moment, or we're both learning. So, the container, it could be the car, it could be,
Well, and it's
um,
you said it, it's anything that holds that space.
yeah,
It's a really like, I love talking to you.
I know, it's so
Um,
good.
so talk to me about what you used to teach people and then what you teach people now. Like
Yes.
what are all the things on your teacher list?
Yes.
Because
So
I
in
love
the
when people are like,
traditional
well,
container, I love that. Back in the day, before I became a mom, where I met my husband, I was a high school English teacher. So that was fun when all of our students found out that like their English teacher was dating their math teacher. It was crazy. But I also would always say that I was a field hockey coach who taught English on the side. I
mm,
think most of the impact I had on students was actually after school on the athletic fields. So
mm,
that was really my container, but I loved um, teaching high school English as well. Um, and then the kids came, and I opted to stay home and raise them. And that's when things shifted. I started side gigs and businesses and things like that. And most recently, what I'm teaching is I teach women and girls how to shift their body image, how to change their body image, and how to separate their body image from their self-worth, which is 100% what I was born to do. And I actually still do that in a smaller, different kind of container on our high school boarding campus, because I run this business, but I also like run a club here at school, um, the Girls Leadership Club. And they're back. The students arrived a few days ago, and I've already had like a handful of girls like, when are we starting club? When are we starting? They're ready. So body image comes into play a lot with that, and overall confidence and leadership skills and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, and it's such a like it's so interesting to me when people talk about that journey through teaching various things, right? When it's all that changed was the color of the pot, really.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Because on an athletic field, like I was a swimmer, so there was no field, but there was surely a pool.
mm-hmm,
I learned a lot about confidence and body image and all of those things. I learned that's honestly like if you say to me, if you had asked me, if you asked me today where most of my confidence comes from, where any of the confidence I have comes from, it comes from the pool in ninth grade.
mm-hmm,
Like it all started in middle school at the pool, and I didn't swim as an elementary kid. I didn't, but all of that confidence and my thoughts about like what I was capable of, a
mm-hmm.
lot of it started there. So you've been teaching this all along.
Yeah. And it's also because it's been my personal journey,
Mm,
because I grew up in an environment and with a message, I think, that small is worthy, small is beautiful. So I was always trying to make myself smaller, which is something I think women tend to do. Um, and particularly when I found sports, but yeah, I was smart in the classroom, but there was something about playing sports and being bigger. It gave me permission to be bigger. And I guess that is the first time that I remember feeling that difference. And then becoming a coach in that same area, it was definitely being a teacher. And it wasn't even the skill set. It's not always about the topic we're
mm,
teaching. It's about the connection we're making, the impact we're having, the presence.
Yeah.
Just, I think for students, whether they're young or our age,
Yeah.
being present with our students, our clients, our people, holding space for them, creating the container, that's the game changer. So that even though I was, teaching, Shakespeare is the only thing that comes to mind, even though I did not like teaching Shakespeare. Even though I was teaching vocabulary, it was really about being present for them and pouring the messages into them that I wanted them to have. And that's what I'm doing now.
Well, and I think for me, and I like as someone in a classroom, I always in who I teach differently now. I still teach in a classroom, not right this second. My classes are done for 2021. What? It's crazy. I'm not teaching fall classes this semester, and that's wild.
I love that. I love that.
But for me, it's interesting. It's sort of the distinction that's made in teaching between content skills and process skills. Like I always think the process skills are more than process skills. Like in math, they're problem solving and sense making and flexibility and fluidity and I think actually, but underneath there are like the life skills of problem solving still fits, but of believing that you're capable of
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you may not take the most direct route and you're still going to figure it out. That like I always felt like as a middle school teacher, my job as an eighth grade teacher with kids going to high school the next year was not necessarily it was to teach the content for sure. But honestly, for me, in a lot of ways, it was secondary to the idea that I wanted my kids to walk out of my classroom. And I feel the same about my college kids and walk into the next class and think, I may not know all of this, but I'm going to be able to figure it out. Because if they can walk away from a math class or from any class, particularly math, though, I think because people have such a hateful relationship with it.
Mm-hmm.
If they can walk into the next class and think like, I can do this, that's enough.
Yeah.
Like that's enough forever.
Yep. And I think you teach one of those things. I mean, we coach each other all the time. And one of the most simple but profound questions you always ask of us is, what's your next best step, right? Like what's the next step? How can you like break it down? And that's math, but it's also life.
Yes.
Right? When you're looking so far ahead and you're thinking this is too much, you always say that to me because I tend to, you're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, this, and then this, and then this. And you're like, what is the next step? Oh, well, I just have to think of one.
I see it in other people because I am that where I'm like, well, step 43 is, if step 42 is this, then 43 is this. But if step 42 and 41 were, and then you're like 47,000 steps down the pike and you're planning for stuff that doesn't exist.
Yes, which shuts it down. And that's what we do with our clients. And I think it's what you do in the math classroom. And it's true. It's very process based.
Yeah. I'm a process person, but I am a firm believer in like, and you do this with people, like the only real thing you have to do is pick up your pencil and move it. Like in math, in life, in anything else, like you don't have to do it right. You just have to do it. Like it's going to be, I was talking to somebody while we were on vacation about, they were like, well, but or this morning maybe, she's like, well, but I'm afraid that if I do it this way, I'm going to fail and people are going to laugh. And I was like, here's, my stance on it is generally speaking, people are laughing. Like they're all laughing right now because I have failed in some way. And if I believe they're already laughing, well, then throw caution to the wind, friends. They're already laughing. I might as well just make them laugh more. Like it is fine to just continue to do it because there are going to be people that like don't like it anyways. Whatever. I've met them.
Yeah. I think it speaks to that other rule you were saying before or concept. There isn't like one right way. I think about when Scott is telling me about a formula, or Scotty, because basically all of my kids at this point know more math than me. And I'm over here like counting and like, if I just figure like, I'm going to get there. It might take me 14 times as long, but there's not like one way to get to
No.
the end. So I love that too.
Well, and there's like, you can like do it the long way.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with
You
the
can
long way.
use your
Sometimes,
fingers.
well,
You can count on your fingers.
yes. Well, and I have kids in college that when we were in person classes, they'd be counting on their fingers and I would see them and they would hide them.
Yes.
And I would say to them, I don't give a crap if you use your toes. I mean, if your feet smell, keep them in your shoes, but do what
Yeah.
you need to do.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather you figure it out than I don't care how you get there. And that's the
Yes.
thing about this and business and everything else.
Yeah.
Like, you got to get there. You want to do it hanging from the ceiling, walking on your toes with your hands on the ground. And like, you want to do it with blue hair? I don't give a crap. Teacher, I want you to get there. That's
Yeah.
the important part. So, talk to me about your favorite part of business, because I think so often, like, don't make that face. I think so often I really work at leading with what's going well. And I think that so
Mm-hmm.
often in business, it's like in life, in teaching, in math, in working on your body and your image and your all of these things, we lead with all the things that are wrong. Like, women and body image, I can't imagine that most of your clients lead with their favorite things, but I'm a big believer in leading with your favorite things. So what is your favorite part of being in business?
Yeah, I do think that's an easy answer, because it's the content, it's the work, it's it's the idea of creating impact through body image, through changing a woman's mind about her body. That's not to say getting her to love her body or like the way she looks, because that's not what we do.
Mm.
It's about changing the relationship between her mind and her body so that she stops beating up on her body. And so, for example, I was just thinking as you were saying that, like, it is the work I do with my clients. This morning, I was working with a client, and I challenged her on an exercise, because the work we were doing came right back to her body. We were in self-judgment, and we were in a lot of heavy emotion, and it all came back to her body. And we got off the call with a really hard homework assignment that really is easy. It was like, spend one day letting your body run the show. Like, your mind isn't allowed to make any rules about your food. Your mind isn't allowed to pass any judgment about what you eat or what you do. Your body just gets to make the rules. If you want to eat the popsicle for breakfast, you get to, like, no rules. And I could just see, like, her mind was immediately making judgments. That's the best part of the work. That's the best part of being in the business. The idea that I can do this kind of work with women everywhere. And I do specifically work with women like over 40.
Right.
So you think about, because body image for a 20-year-old or a teenager is totally different.
Yeah.
Just as important, but totally different. We have had kids or raised kids. We have maybe gone through perimenopause or menopause or gravity, or life, or we're running businesses and raising kids, or they're out of the house. Like,
Yes.
Life has have run over us in the best way.
Yes, but
like,
it's still like being hit by a
changed
truck.
our bodies, right? So in our minds, we're still like 17 and we're supposed to be 127 pounds, which I never was, and be a certain size, and our skin's supposed to be perfect, and we're supposed to look a certain way. And we look in the mirror and we're 40 something, 50 something, 60 something. And the best part of my business is knowing that I can impact women in this way so that they can change their whole worlds.
Well, and it's, it is the gift of like prompting people to think about things that have never occurred to them, right? Like, it is a magical thing to say to somebody, like, your body could be in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Because your brain is like, oh, hey,
No, we don't do that.
wait a minute, what's happening here? Like, there are those moments like where you like know that you melted somebody's brain because they're like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. And not in the best, like, the look on her face, I don't know that she was loving me in that moment, but she was willing to try. I think she was thinking in her head, oh crap, I'm going to have to do this week, right? She knew she was going to commit to it. And she wouldn't have even gotten there because the conversation was what got us there, which
Yeah.
I don't even know if she would have seen it, but she was willing to do hard, simple, but hard. And I think I think we broke something a little bit today.
Well, and
That's
I
the
think
fun
that
part.
there's like, you had an experience. I have one in mind, where you were learning something and the person you were learning it from, you wanted to smack
Mm-hmm.
like hard, where you were
Mm-hmm.
like, no, 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 just tell me how to do it. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
nope, you're going to get it. And they had enough faith in you to let you figure it out and screw up your way through it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I have been the teacher in those situations with kids. I know for a fact that I have facilitated those things with adults, because I ran a math workshop one summer for middle school teachers, and I had one of them so mad at me, she was balling up little pieces of paper and throwing them at me. She was pissed. But in the end, she figured it out, and she walked out on the last day and she hugged me. And my co-facilitator about died, like right there on the spot, because he was like, wasn't that the lady that was throwing things at you? Like, yep, now we're besties. But like, those are the things that stick with people that make a tremendous impact. And we don't always know it,
Mm-hmm.
but it is those things where they're like, I'm not gonna like this, but I know it makes a difference. And
Yep.
that's a big deal.
That's the best part.
Mm. Hmm. So, best part, biggest challenge. So, talk
Yep.
to me about, like, narrow it down to one, because we all have,
Yeah.
like, we can make a list, Santa
I think
scroll.
I can narrow it all into one, put it all into one. And that is like
It's gonna be one
giving,
enormous.
yeah, but it like, it's giving myself permission to make all the decisions. Like when you when you leave the classroom and you go to run your own business, you are the teacher, the principal, the superintendent. Sometimes you're the student because you're figuring everything out on your own. You're everyone. And that's been the hardest part, is making all the decisions on my own, giving myself permission to go that way instead of that way, or invest that time, money, energy on that tool, or say that thing. Like every part of my business is my decision.
Mm.
And as a woman who, because I've walked that body image journey, and it affects every part of your life when you put your worth into something specific that may or may not um, be enough,
Mm.
particularly with the body image. It sort of falls everywhere. So to take up your space and say, I'm going to do this thing this way in this container with these people at this time, that's been the hardest part, because my brain likes to say, you're going to do it wrong. What if you do this?
Well, and I think it's interesting because that permission comes, like, there's a lot that comes with that, right? It's permission to do it. It's permission to make all the decisions. It's
Mm-hmm.
permission to do it differently.
Fail.
It's permission to fail. It's permission to be nice to yourself either way. It's permission. It is like all the thing. It's like this crazy hierarchy of the permissions you have to give
Mm-hmm.
yourself. That probably makes a chart at some point. Um,
Write it down.
I know. But it's interesting because it really is like this constant permission giving. It's almost like you give yourself 15 permission slips a day,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to constantly do it. Where like your kid goes on a field trip, you give them one permission slip, they go, or they're done. This is not, this doesn't work like that. You're constantly like reissuing the permission slip, like to
Yeah.
the delinquent kid who can't quite
But
grab
I
it.
also have that kid, or had that kid. He has grown out of it, I think, who asked permission for everything
Mm,
because he wanted so badly to be the good boy, to be, everything was black and white. So he asked permission for everything, right? So giving yourself, it's true, it's a giant umbrella. And that's why I think it is the overarching hardest part of going into business for myself, is being the one where like the buck stops, but also like the one who gets to say, yeah, go do that thing.
Well, and also it's different, I think, for teachers, for people who were in a school system at a certain point. Like the thing about teaching is that it allows for a lot of creativity, but the box is pretty dang well defined.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
walk into this room at this time, and when you get to go to the bathroom, a bell rings, and then you eat at this time they scheduled for you. And if you need a day off, you write a letter and you send the email to this person, and you get this check on this day, and you work this many days on it. Like it is very structured.
I just sent out my 16 Residence Hall welcome letters to kids and parents due by tomorrow in this official notes section of our system platform, with these component, like every house parent has to do it the same way. Yeah, there's structure yes. to being a teacher in the traditional container. And so when that structure is gone, or you are the one to create it, that's scary.
Well, it's like somebody laid out stuff in your backyard and they were like, make a plant pot. You were like, come again?
That's exactly what I would be like, what's a plant?
It's like, what's it going to hold? How sturdy does it need to be? Does it need to let through water? Like, what kind of seed is it? What? It's like all of those things, right? Yep. And then somebody gave you like plastic tin foil and saran wrap, and you're like,
and said it gets to be whatever you want.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, because I'm finally teaching the content I want to be teaching, but also terrifying because
you're teaching what you want to be teaching.
I need the teacher's book.
Right. Well, I can remember thinking
I need the answers.
Like I just need I need the answer key.
I need the answer
most key. People like have never had anyone hand them a teacher answer key, but let me tell you, it's a lovely thing. Most of my people who listen to this have, where they're like, here's your textbook, here's the answer book, and you're like, yes.
Yeah.
But like, and I can remember in college actually, when I went back and did the math courses at night, getting the textbooks that came with the answer books. I can remember when I was teaching college kids, when I was at Rutgers years and years ago, they would get their textbook and they would get like the answer key book with them when they bought it for their college course. And I cannot tell you how many kids came into class and tried to hand that to me, because they were like, well, I
got your book.
I'm not supposed to have this, right? and yeah, it's not time yet, babes.
Wait, we're watching movies.
Sorry, welcome to the podcast with children on it.
Yep.
And
maybe dogs.
Yeah, right. Those are outside too. But that where they were like, well, I'm not allowed to have this. I'm like, well, it actually comes with your book. You're allowed to have the answers so that you can check them. And they're like, come again? Like it would like freak them. They'll be like, well, but I'll just leave it with you. Like, no, you need to use it. And they're like, what? And I can remember feeling like that, like where you're like, I'm not sure I'm supposed to have these answers, but okay. But really having the handbook would be lovely. Who do we think we buy that from?
Right. And now in business, we're creating our own answer key.
Yes. Well, and it changes all the time. Right.
Yep.
Because the minute you're like, it's like, remember when your kids were newborns and the minute you had the schedule worked out, it was like they grew an inch and then their schedule changed and you were like, but I had it a minute ago. I just had it. Don't grow again. How do you think, what do you want to tell people? There are lots of people at various stages of starting businesses in this audience. They're all people that come from the teaching world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I'm one of those people that like gives advice hesitantly because I don't think we can always hear it until we're ready to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you want them to know? Like, if you look and you think like this is the most useful thing I can give people, what is it about starting business and about doing this whole thing?
Yeah. Well, I think when I think about that question, and I think specifically about teachers, I think teachers would understand that one of the most valuable resources that they have when they are teaching in the classroom are other teachers, right? Like the best moments are when you're sitting and collaborating with your math department, or you're sitting over lunch and you're teaching math and somebody from the English department mentioned something super awesome that they did in class based on, um, the latest novel they were reading, and you're like, wait, I think I can do that in my content. I think that is the greatest resource to take anywhere. You can still do that
Mm.
when you are starting your own business. I think your brain wants to tell you you're going to be out on your own, you're doing this all alone. It's so scary, you can't do this. I think the greatest resource, the greatest piece of advice, if I could give, would be to surround yourself with sort of like a faculty.
Mm.
What was the first thing, or one of the first things you and I did was connect. We were in a coaching group, like we were being coached by the same coach, and we were like, hi, you're new, I'm new, let's get together. And that was like eons ago, right? And
Yeah.
and we've grown and we've added, and we've joined networking groups, and we've joined specific networking groups that connect with us specifically. Like, I connect with women, we're in women's networking groups, and I think that is such a valuable resource to not try and make this jump and take this journey by yourself because you're going into business by yourself, because there's still a tremendous network and resource out there in the way of others who are on the journey at different points. So some will mentor you and teach you, and some will walk beside you and be your classmates, or some will, there's just this whole awesome like spider web, right? And for me specifically, I think, I know you don't just work with women, but there's something really powerful about women who collaborate and connect with other women, because I think sometimes there's this idea that women are in competition with each other and we compare ourselves to other women. And when you discover that in actuality, women love to support each other and encourage each other and help each other, it's a game changer.
Well, and that's interesting
That's
because in the one of the things I was talking to somebody about recently is I have never, I mean, we have our friends. You have your friends from like high school and college and the people you've always had. Like you have your people. I have slowly found my mom friends where we live here now, but it's like slowly, like, 10 years later.
mhm,
Because that world of women can be very competitive and just wow
mhm,
sometimes. But I think I have had a much easier time finding people that were my people out here in the business world who
mhm,
like got what I was doing and were willing to walk with me and be ahead of me and ask me for help and do these things. Like you made a list a minute ago of like people that will be your classmates, people that will mentor you, people that will be your mentor. I think we have done that for each other, all of those things,
yes, all of those
sometimes in the
things
same freaking call,
in the same hour. Yeah.
like on the regular. And I think, it's a really interesting thing to realize that like the people that you're seeking, the support that you need, the people that speak what you speak, like we don't do the same thing. We both coach, but we don't coach in the same way. We don't coach necessarily the same people. There's not,
Mhm,
but we get the journey and we
mhm.
get each other, and here we are, and like we knew it right away. This is the thing that makes me laugh. Like I think that was almost 2 years ago where you were like, hi,
Yeah.
we're like, hi, we're friends now. Like
You're my person.
we get
We've
each
known each
other.
other for 5 minutes.
We're both like the C students in this class where we're
Yeah.
like,
And we're scared.
we're scared and we're intimidated by the one that like asks all the really businessy questions. And
Yes.
and we're busy making fun of the coach's pictures on the wall in the background and trying to figure out
Yeah.
if it was a sea otter
What
on a
does that
bicycle. I
say?
don't.
Yes. Yeah.
And so like we were those students and it was like, oh, I see you. You're my person. And I
You're,
think,
yep.
I don't know about you, but I've had a much, in a lot of ways, easier time finding those people out here in the business world all over the world than I think I ever did as a mom, as a teenager, as a college student, as like a 20 something. I don't know. What do you think of that?
I think that's a really interesting point. And I personally, maybe, and maybe some of the coaching that I do, I think that depending on the story you have about yourself is
Oh,
where you find your people. Not to, I'm thinking more of myself. Like one of the stories that I've always believed about myself, which is why I do what I do, is um, I don't belong. Right. So that story loved to rear its ugly head whenever I would find myself in a group of women, especially when it came to, you know, body, beauty, that kind of physical appearance. And so that work shows up for me everywhere,
mm,
even in the business world, even with the other moms. I grew up in a very heavy uh, faith-based family, church family. So like grew up in church and that story showed up there too. And it just showed up everywhere.
yeah.
So I'm so curious to, I love that you're like, oh, I found my people, right? Like my brain loves to kick my ass every time I find my people. My brain likes to tell me, you don't belong here because of A,
But
B, and
you
C. So that's the work I
do.
do. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I totally do. Like it's just, that's why I always have a coach.
Amen. Well, and
Because
I think
and
it's an interesting thing that we get to know those things about ourselves, right? Like I
mhm,
think one of the things I've found much in the same way is as you build your self community, as you know that you're not alone, as you figure out, I think like your advice is to know you have a community, to build your community. Mine to people is often practice asking for help, to go
mm,
one step further, to not only build the community, but to actually ask the community for things like you are not bothering people, you deserve the help.
yeah, I love that
And
they go together.
they do. It's like magic. It's why
It's
we're
like,
friends.
yes.
Um, but I think it's an interesting thing, right? Because we, on top of the belonging in the community, it's like, yes, but I'm bothering them, or yes,
Mhm.
but there's like all the reasons not to ask for help. But really, like what we do for each other often is like, hey, I have this thing and I need 5 minutes of your brain. And we can do that. And then it's like, oh, I'm not a lunatic, or yes, this makes sense, or oh, that was the right question to ask me in that moment. Okay. And then
Yeah.
we go on about our days. Like we have this community, but it's also very open to to poking at the kinds of work we're doing. It's like, I had this thing happen. This person said this, like, what would you do? And we go back and forth. And sometimes we answer each other, and sometimes we're like, nah, man, can't answer that for you. You have to figure that out.
Mhm.
Here's what I would think about. And so we get to apply our work to each other more often than not, which is also fun.
Yeah.
What talk to me about your group and what's happening in there right now, because I know it's a place I am, and it's a place I know a lot of people in, because it's a
Yep.
fun place. Talk to me
It
about
is, and
it.
stuff is happening in there. So the name of the group is called Loving Your Body. It's particularly for women over 40, but I know there are some youngsters in there. So all women are welcome, but a lot of the content and training and questions are geared toward those of us who have lived life a little longer. Um, so the kinds of things that are going on in there right now. I'm on day 2 of a 5-day training that is about 5 lies that women believe about their bodies. So good.
There's only
So
5.
good. There's so many, but like these 5 are mind blowing, right? Because I think when you hear them, you're like, that's not a lie, right? Like, that's not a lie. That's the scary, that's like the danger behind them. These are lies that women live by, not knowing.
Tell us the one
that
from
they're
yesterday.
lies.
What was
The one from
yesterday's
yesterday
lie?
is that working on yourself in any way, shape, or form, but particularly your body image, is selfish. It's vain. Women have more important things to do, right? But that's a thought women think all the time.
All the
Like, to
time.
think of myself is selfish.
Mhm.
Today's is my favorite, I think, and it's happening after I get off the call with you.
Yeah, but this won't be
it's
out.
so
This
good.
won't be out right away. So spill
Oh,
it.
that's right.
Spill it.
Oh, I can spill it. That's right. Today's is if I just lose the weight, I'll be happy.
Oh, boo.
And that's diet culture. That's the world perpetuating that lie. And that's a big one. And that's one I believe most of my life. And
Yeah, I catch myself there. Yeah.
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 It's so subtle.
Well, and it's so pervasive.
And it's
like
everywhere.
It is like the stick that all of those companies are using. Like, you will be happy if you lose those 10 pounds. It's like literally their marketing.
That's the word. Yeah. If you ever spend like 5 minutes watching commercials on probably any channel, every other commercial is, I lost the weight, now I'm happy. Jenny Craig and Marie Osmond and, Weight Watchers. And then every other commercial is like Oreos and
peanut butter cups.
And like fast food and McDonald's. Like, so you're alternating, like, eat this junk and then come spend all your money here making your body better so that you're happy, and then eat this junk because it makes you happy. It's like, it's a total marketing scheme.
Oh my gosh, we could be, gosh.
Yeah, there's a rabbit hole. It's only going to be a short training, but and then I have a free master class coming up after that, which I don't know when this is coming out, but
when is
that will be in the middle of September.
Oh, perfect. Yes, this will be out by then. But also tell me the date of that, and then tell people it will be in your group, and all of these lives are in your group when they go to them eventually.
So the trainings are all in the group, Loving Your Body. The master class is basically, it's called Breaking Up with Your Body Shame.
Oh.
And it's the 3 steps to finding peace with your body. And that will be on Wednesday, September 15th.
Girl, I have to have you come in and like do all my workshop naming, because you're way better at it than me. Always. I'm always like, dang, she's good at that.
I do love that one. I'm so excited to be teaching this one. So this will be a good one, because body shame still kicks my booty often. It's just the work.
I hear you. Well, listen, friends, I will put all the links to all things Jen Lebo in the transcript notes at the top. And if you should go join her group. I'm in there. Like, everyone I know is in there, because you're supposed to be.
If you're a woman and you have a body, come hang out. Right?
And if you're like, you have little kids and, gravity, because we're all impacted by gravity and all the things, like, she's good for us. And she's like a good human to boot. So come on. And if you are sitting around in your business and you can't figure out this whole community thing, or you can't figure out how to give yourself permission or how to start. I talked to somebody this morning and she was like, I just don't know where to begin. Listen, that's what I do with people. Like, we simplify. We do the next thing, not the next 400 things. And if you want to talk about that, we should do that. But at any rate, thank you, Jen Lebo. This was so one fun. Of my favorite treats. Thank you for doing this with us. And yay.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. It just feels like a party whenever I'm with you.
Sometimes we cry, mostly it's a party.
Sometimes we cry, but it's still a party.
Yay. Well, thank you.